Hey guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It is 9 o'clock, which means it's time for another video. Now today, I'm going to be talking about two-person shows, two-person acts. Now this came as a result of the Q&A, because a few different people have said to me, how do you go around setting up an act where two people are involved? How do you go around setting up a double act? I want to do a show with my mate. We want to do it together. What's the important things to consider? And it's a great question. There's some amazing double acts out there. You look at people, obviously everybody knows Penn and Teller, but just here in the UK, you've got people like Morgan and West, you've got Jay and Josh, you've got Young and Strange, you've got Carl and Dave. Back in the day, the Wizards of Odd, who I don't know how many people remember the Wizards of Odd, were one of the best double acts of all time. So there's been double acts for years, and you know, the thing with me is I've actually been in a double act pretty much my entire career in Magic, as well as doing stuff on my own. So when I first started taking stage magic seriously and I started really kind of putting my illusion show together, I did it with Russell Leeds, and myself and Russell used to have a two-person show. Before that, I used to do a two-person show with his dad, Ethan. And then I went on from Ethan to actually do a two-person show with Russ. We toured the UK for years doing a two-person show until he left. And even now, the Slightly Unusual show is a two-person show. It's actually a three-person show, but one person is the assistant. So even now with the Slightly Unusual show, it's a two-person show. Sometimes I'm doing it with Nemid, sometimes I'm doing it with Matt, sometimes I'm doing it with maybe even Alex Foden occasionally jumps in. So I'm always doing a two-person show, and when I do kids shows, and I'm doing them with Ryland. I was very insistent on Ryland kind of making his own path in Magic. But, you know, we still do a two-person kids show together, which we love doing. I do it just for fun. And me and Rye do a two-person show together where it's me and him. So I've been involved and continue to be involved in double acts. And there are so many things to consider when you're setting up a double act. And this video, I put together a top 10 list. This is 10 things that you might need to consider when setting up a two-person show, a two-person double act, right? Because there's pros and there's cons. There's good things and there's bad things. Let me quickly tell you about some of the good things and the bad things before I tell you what you should do. So having a double act, it's great because if you're not... One of the reasons I started working in a double act is because I was very nervous about performing on stage. I've never done it before. And the thought of going on stage, I'll be honest, it scared me to death. And so having somebody there doing it with me kind of made it feel a little bit better because I had somebody else there that kind of I could bounce off. So if you're nervous, being in a double act really helps from that point of view. Also, one of the things about being a professional magician is it can be a bit of a lonely experience. You're traveling the whole of the UK, the whole of the world, depending on where you are. And you're normally driving to a venue, setting up, doing your show, driving to another venue or driving home. There's a lot of period of times when you're on your own, right? And having a two-person show, having a double act means that you've got that person there with you the whole time. It's a little bit more interesting. There's somebody that you can talk to. So there's that advantage as well. Also, having a two-person show, having a double act can almost make a show feel bigger. You know, oh, right, okay, but we've had a solo artist in the past, but now we've got a double act. You know, it kind of can make the show feel a bit bigger. And also, it allows you to create routines and set pieces that you just could never do there was one person. And allows you to use props that you couldn't do. So let's say you wanted to do a master prediction system. Well, if you are a solo artist and you've got no backstage assistant, it's going to be next to impossible to do a master prediction system because you need somebody to secretly write that information backstage. But if there's two of you, you can structure it in a very interesting way without needing to put it into an illusion show where you've got an assistant backstage. So there's a lot of props and a lot of set pieces that you can actually do with a two-person show. There's a lot of advantages. Now, let me tell you about the big disadvantage, or a couple of the big disadvantages. The first is you're splitting the money, right? Normally, at least when so it can lead to bigger and better gigs. It can lead to a bigger payday. When we were doing the holiday park circuit, Slightly Unusual, when we first started, got paid more than a solo artist because there was me and Russ and we bought illusions and stuff. But still, it's not double the amount, which means that what's happening is you're splitting that money. You're making less money for going out and effectively doing the same gig a lot of the time. So that's something that you need to take into consideration. It's why a lot of double acts if they're not like a big name double act, what they'll do is they'll do stuff on their own as well as doing the double act as well. You look at Carl and Dave; they're a perfect example. Carl and Dave are one of the funniest double acts that I know of. But generally, as a rule, they do their own stuff as well. Dave Allen and Carl Charlesworth are off doing their own thing, but they come together for the Carl and Dave show, but it's not the only thing that they do. Now, you can get to an established point where, you can command bigger fees by being in this double act. Jay and Josh are pretty much there now. You look at Young and Strange are another perfect example, as obviously are Penn and Teller. But you can get to a point where the fact that the brand that you've created is worth so much that you can make more money by going out and being a double act than a single act. But that's also something to consider, especially when you're first getting started. You're going to make less money going out as a double act than you would do on your own. Also, you're with that same person all of the time. It can be very difficult if you have an argument, and I've been in that situation when I was touring with Russ, and we'd be going away for a week at a time. When I was working the holiday park circuit, we'd leave on a Monday afternoon. We'd be away Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We'd get back late Friday night. We'd go off and do our own gigs over the Saturday and the Sunday, and then back to it again on Monday. That's a lot of the time on the road, stuck in a van, stuck in a little caravan with each other. And if you have an argument or you piss each other off, which can happen, it can be a very difficult situation that you're going to find yourself in, because you still have to go out and do the shows, but you're kind of stuck. How do you deal with it? So there's a lot of pros and cons, but you know what? Ultimately, if I could go back and change anything, I wouldn't change anything. I've really enjoyed being in double acts. And I'm in a situation now where I don't have to be in a double act. I could go out and do my own show. I don't get nervous going and doing a show anymore. It'd be very easy for me to go and do my own show. But the reason I like working with people like Matt and Ryland and Nemid and so on and so forth is because it's just fun. It's more fun being in a double act than it is working on your own. So with that being said, and with all that in mind, let's have a look at it. Let's talk about this, shall we? Let's talk about 10 things that you can do to really kind of put together a solid double act. Okay, so the first point, and this one happens right at the very beginning, when you're first setting up the double act, when you're first putting it all together, share the workload and work out what each person's doing. I have seen double acts that are absolutely phenomenal, and they have split up because the perception has been between the double act that one person does more work than the other. You want to share that workload out. And when I'm talking about the workload, I'm not just talking about the show. I'm not just talking about, hey, you do 50% of the show, I do 50% of the show. I'm talking about everything else that you need to put together to market the show. I'm talking about who's going to do the social media posts, who's going to do the social media marketing, who's going to be dealing with the bookings, who's going to be taking the sales calls, who's going to be liaising with the agents, who's going to be dealing with the money, who's going to be doing the accounting. And you also need to make sure, as well as sharing out the workload, you need to make sure that you've got your deal in place as well. So what's the deal? Are you just going 50-50 on everything? So any money that comes in, you're going 50-50 on it? What about the costs associated with it? What are you going to do about that? Or is it 50-50 on the profit? So you say, right, as a double act, we're going to make this much money, but we're going to take out everything that's cost us to do this, whether it be marketing or it be travel to the gig or hotel rooms or whatever it is, and then we'll share the profit. Is that the way you're going to go? You need to think about all of this stuff, and also, are you going to need anything to do this double act, or have you got everything to begin with? If you're going to need props, like when I first started the Illusion Act with Russ, we had no props. We had to go and buy all the illusions. What are you going to do about that? Who's going to finance that? And how is that going to get paid back to the person that is financing it? All of this is very, very important, because it may not seem important to do this at the beginning, but as you become more and more successful, this is the sort of thing that can lead to serious arguments between the two of you. Share the workload out. Make sure you know that you don't want a situation where one person is annoyed because the other person isn't doing anywhere near as much. Think about what you're both doing and make sure that you're sharing the workload and the costs out accordingly. Okay, so the next point, which is a very important point, is find common interests. This is kind of all of the stuff that you need to know before you actually even start thinking about the tricks. The first one was share the workload. The second one is find common interests. Like I said, you're going to be on the road with each other a long time if this show becomes successful. If you actually start performing with each other all the time, you're going to be on the road a lot. Find stuff that you're both interested in. Find stuff that you can talk about that you're both interested in. Find common interests. Because there's nothing worse than doing a 4-hour drive to a venue and you're sitting there in silence and you don't particularly like each other, but you're stuck with each other because of this show. So find common interests. Make sure that the person that you're actually going to be spending more time with than your partner is somebody that you like spending time with. Because if that's not the case, then you may as well jack it in right now, because it's not going to work in the long run. So you may as well jack it in before you do all of the work, as opposed to being in a situation where you put all the work in and then you split up over something stupid. So make sure that the two of you like spending time with each other. Number 3, establish your character. That is so important. So what is the character in your show? What you've got 2 people, right? You need to be clearly defining what each person is in the show and what your character is, and you need to play to those strengths. When you're developing routines, when you're developing set pieces, when you're developing anything for this show, you need to take your character in mind. We've talked on this channel before about the importance of having a performing character. It's even more important than having a performing character when you're actually on stage with each other as part of a 2-person show. Think about all of the greats. Think about Abbott and Costello. You could immediately say what character Abbott had and what character Costello had. You know who's the funny man, you know who's the straight man. It's the same with Laurel and Hardy. Every double act that you've ever seen, Hale and Pace, Ant and Dec, the list goes on and on. You know immediately what their character is, right? So it's important that you know what your character is in the show. Now, I'm going to give you an example for this. I'm going to play some footage for you. This is from way back when I had hair. So this is back many, many years ago when I was still working with Russ and his wife, Anna. And this is the semi-final, I think it is. This is the semi-final of Britain Does Variety. So we entered Britain Does Variety. I entered it myself on my own as a solo act years later. But this is the first time we entered it as Slightly Unusual. And we did really well. We got all the way through to the final. But this is what we did in the semi-final. And this was a signature piece for us back in the day. And it was designed as, this was the opening of our show. So what you're about to see, this 5-minute competition act, was the opening of our show. So we opened with the Crystal Casket because we thought that would be a really nice opening, because, hey, you're making a girl appear on stage, nothing like a really quick visual moment. But then we went into this routine that we called Heads Off, and it's basically a heads off routine with a vanishing radio. But the way that we actually constructed this, right, was based on our character, was based on the character of myself and Russ, and in many ways Anna as well. So my character was, I was this guy, I was older, so I thought I knew everything. I was, the best magician. I'm working here with these other 2 people, but I'm far and away the talent in this group, right? Whilst in reality, I was the one that used to mess everything up and everything used to go wrong. But I was always trying to be the leader and I was trying to lead from the front. Now, Russ was the one that was actually able to do the magic. He was the more talented of all of us. And yet he was the one that I would constantly berate and bully. And he would always be there making sure that the trick worked. And half of the time I wasn't aware of this. And I just accepted, that it went right because of me. And so he was the more likable character of the two of us. I was the one that people used to love to hate, and that dynamic worked really well. Now, Anna, her character in the whole thing was that of somebody who, she's a magician's assistant, but she's kind of more on Russ's side than my side. The two of them work together to make me look silly a lot of the time, and she's not your typical glamorous assistant. So we put all 3 of those personas into the act, and it worked really well. And this is a perfect example of this. This is the heads off routine. And you're going to see in the heads off routine, exactly what I'm talking about, because basically I'm saying that I'm going to be doing this amazing trick with this radio, and that I can get us all the way through to the final. And in reality, what's actually happening is Russ is doing an even more impressive trick behind me that I'm not aware of, which is even more impressive. The audience are clapping. I assume they're clapping for me. I can't do this simple radio trick, and then Russ comes in and does it as well, and I take the glory. That's how the act was presented, and that what you're seeing here is a 5-minute excerpt of basically the whole 1 hour show. So the character, and that's why we led with heads off at the very beginning, because the character at the very beginning was established with this opening routine and then developed over the course of the show. And there were things like competitions, and I would have competitions with Russ, and there were other set pieces. But this will give you an idea of what I'm talking about establishing character. Myself and Russell have very clearly defined characters that people could buy into within literally a couple of seconds. So let's have a look at this performance footage. This is from Britain Does Variety semi-final.
Okay, is everybody ready for some magic? Yeah! I said, are you ready? Yeah! Then watch this. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. My name's Craig.
And my name's Russ.
And welcome to the show. Now, tonight we're going to be performing a classic of magic.
It really is a classic.
See, I'm going to be making something big disappear.
That's right. We're going to make something really...
No, not you, me. I'm going to be making something big disappear, not you.
Well, what about me?
You're probably a bit too big. Look at you like, whoa.
No, I mean, should we do it together?
Yeah, Craig and Russ, slightly unusual, but you've got to understand, this is a big gig, Russ. This is the semi-finals of Britain Does Variety. If we win here, we could be in the final. And frankly, there's no better man to make sure that happens than me. I can't trust you, you'll mess it up. Look, there's 2 seats there. There's one for you, there's one for Anna. What I want you to do is sit down and watch a real magician work. I'm going to make sure we get through to the final and you can hold on to my coattails all the way. You go sit down, because who here likes listening to music? Yeah, there's been some fantastic singers on tonight. Well, I have here a radio, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm going to try and make this radio disappear right in front of your eyes. You see, you need 3 things. You need a radio, you need a cloth, and you need some really cool music. But let me ask you one question. Are you ready? Yes! No, I said, are you ready? Yes! Then here we go. A little bit louder, I think. Hang on a second. Turn it right up there. Here we go. Watch the radio, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to try and make this radio completely disappear. Now, the first thing that you need is a cloth. And you've got to wave the cloth around like this. You've got to let everyone know it's a real cloth. It's very important. You've got to let everyone know it's a real cloth. And then what you do, you take this cloth and you cover up whatever you're going to make disappear. Looks something like this. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, the vanishing radio on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. I'm sorry, really sorry. Let me do this again. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, the vanishing radio. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. I appreciate that. I haven't done anything yet. What? It's not working. It's not working? I know. If we made this radio disappear, every single person here would give us a big round of applause.
Well, maybe we could try and do it together. Maybe.
Do it together?
Let's give it a try.
Let's try. Ladies and gentlemen, watch the radio on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Craig.
My name's Russ.
See you again. Bye, everybody.
Okay, so the next point number 4, is be consistent. So what I mean by be consistent is once you've established your characters, those characters have to be consistent during the course of the performance, however long the performance is, whether it's 15 minutes, half an hour, those characters have to become ingrained. They have to be there the whole time. What you don't want to do is do something like Heads Off, like you've just seen, and obviously I'm there being portrayed as this kind of not very nice person who's taking credit for something that somebody else has done, and then all of a sudden I'm this wonderful human being and now everybody's on my side. It will confuse the audience. Once you've established the characters in the show, everything that you do, every single routine, every single bit of business, every single piece of dialogue and script to the audience has to follow along those characters. What you don't want to do is be inconsistent with it, because then that's the sort of thing that will confuse an audience and ultimately it'll mean that they will turn off. So the next point is very, very important. Be consistent when you're performing the show. Okay, so the next important point is to understand your market. That's very, very important. Understand your market. What do I mean by that? Well, ultimately, what is your goal with this duo show? What is your goal with this two-person show? What are you going to do with it? Where are you wanting it to go? Are you wanting it to take it to the Edinburgh Fringe? And then ultimately, are you going to want to go on cruise liners? Are you wanting to travel the world with it? Are you wanting to do the holiday park circuit with it? Are you wanting to do corporates? Are you wanting to do weddings? Where are you wanting to take this act? Because that will define the way that your characters are presented, and that will define as well the way that the show is actually structured. So when me and Russ were putting this show together, our goal at the time was to do holiday parks. We wanted to tour holiday parks because we thought that would be a great way to work the act in, and we did. We started doing holiday parks, and this show that you just saw part of it, right? This act was perfect for holiday parks because it was family friendly. It was a bit kiddie, as you saw there, with stuff happening behind me, but it was really strong magic, so it worked really well for a family audience. And after we finished the holiday park circuit, we then kind of thought, right, okay, well, we'll focus on weddings and corporates, because not many illusion acts do weddings and corporates. That will give us a kind of a niche audience to go after, and we changed the act around a little bit. We still kept the same characters. My character was still the same. Russell's character was still the same, but we dialed it down a little bit. We took out some of the more kiddie style routines of the act and replaced them with stuff that was a little bit more grown up. And it was still the same act, it was still the same concept, it was still the same, but it was designed to go after a different market. The point I'm trying to say is the market that you go after is very, very, very important. Who are you going after? What's your target audience? What are you ultimately wanting this show to do? And if you do say, I want to go to the Edinburgh Fringe, great. What sort of show are you doing? Like, because you can do a family show, you can do a more hardcore show. Like, you have to think this stuff through. When you're developing the tricks, don't just put a trick in your show because you like it, because it's good. Put it in because it works for the audience in which you're trying to market yourself to. Like if you're a mentalist and you're doing a show with another mentalist, who's going to be seeing that show? It doesn't matter what tricks you do, but you have to think about your market. That's very important. The next point is the thing that's probably going to take you the longest to do, which is develop set pieces. Develop set routines that take advantage of the fact that you have two people, okay? So the heads off routine that you just saw is a perfect example. You couldn't do that routine on your own. Yes, I could present the heads off illusion on my own with a girl. I could vanish a radio on my own, but to do that routine the way that you just saw it done, that can't be done without having two people on stage, right? So it's really important to develop set routines that involve the two people that are a part of the show. You see this a lot with clairvoyance, and one person's blindfolded and the other person isn't. So you know, on the Netflix there's an act called the YMCA act, which I can do on my own, but when I do it with Nemid, or I do it with Alex, or I do it with Matt or somebody like that, they are part of that with me. So they're the ones that are reading the mind, and I'm the person that's kind of leading this from the front, but they're the ones that are ultimately reading the mind, and it fits in with the same theme. So think about how you can bring two people in together. I'm going to give you another example now. So this is from a recent kids show that me and Ryland did. As I said, me and Ryland do kids shows together from time to time, and the same character that I play that you saw in the Heads Off act, I also play in the show that I do with Ryland. Now, the big difference is, because it's a kid's show, I turn the volume up about 100%. I literally make myself out as a pantomime villain. I am literally a pantomime villain. And I play the role of Ryland's dad, which isn't a stretch. It's easy for me to do. I play the role of Ryland's dad, but I'm almost annoyed by the fact that he's more famous than me, because when we do a show together, it's normally because a company's booked it or something, and they are aware of Ryland and who he is, and probably not aware of me. So I'm annoyed that he's had all of this fame, and that he's on Britain's Got Talent, and he's on America's Got Talent, and nobody knows who I am. And the way that I deal with that is by putting him down in the show, but ultimately he's the one that does the magic. And not only that, it leans into the fact, and we couldn't do this with Russ because Russ wasn't a kid, but Ryland is a kid. So it leans into the fact that Ry is a kid. And because Ryland's a kid, he'll do stuff to his dad that is naughty, that the kids in the audience will find funny, like he's going to be hitting me with a wand, or he's going to be winding me up and saying something incorrectly just because he knows it's going to annoy me. So what you're going to see is a really big set piece here. So it starts with us doing a colouring routine together and colouring in this picture, doing this magic colouring routine, classic kid style routine, but I can't make it work, so I get him to help me. He's messing around, he's making me look silly, which the kids absolutely love. They already love him, but now they love him even more. And then after that, I walk off, I'm annoyed, and he finishes it. And then from there, I get very annoyed, and we had Matt at this this one as well, because we were going off to do an illusion show together. Me and Matt were in Liverpool, so we had Matt there as well. So Matt then comes up and arranges a competition between me and Ryland, which obviously Ryland is always going to win because it's engineered so that he's going to win it. So I do, a really terrible trick. It's a good trick, but it's a very simple trick, and he does something way more impressive. And normally I would be the one. I'd be like, you can't insult me like that. We're going to have a magic competition. Because Matt was there, we got Matt to do that element of it. But it's still me versus Ryland. It's just that Matt was kind of acting as kind of the compare in this situation. But the point is, this is a set piece. This whole thing lasts a few minutes. It's the colouring routine. My character is already established with Ryland at that point anyway. But during the course of this colouring routine, this whole, which is a complete set piece, this is what I'm talking about creating set pieces that are built into the character. During the course of this colouring routine, the kids are 100% now. They get my character, they get Ryland's character. So when the competition is done, they are going to naturally side with Ryland, which they're going to do anyway because he does a better trick than me. But it just works brilliantly. So let's have a look at this. This is another way to format a two-person show when there's two of you on stage together. Okay, so the next point that I want to make is play to your strengths. Play to your strengths. What do I mean by play to your strengths? Well, this can mean in the show, but it can also mean outside of the show. Like I said, when you put a two-person show together, there's going to be a lot of stuff that's going to be done outside of the actual show. Is the one person that's better at marketing than the other? Is the one person better than admin at the other? Is the one person that naturally gravitates towards something? In which case you get that person to do that and you get somebody else to do something else. But it happens inside the show as well. If there's one, so Matt, for example, I do a two-person show with Matt as part of Slightly Unusual, and there's moments where, there's lots of routines where sleight of hand needs to be done. Well, that's not Matt's strength. Matt's strength is developing realistic presentations of mentalism, right? So we do this whole routine involving John Allen's destination box, and it's going to involve a card being palmed, secretly folded. So that's my role. My role in the show is to do that, while Matt's role is to do more of the presentational side of it. So he's presenting the routine, he's leading the routine, and although I'm there as well, the focus isn't on me, it's on Matt, which means that I can do all of the secret moves that I need to do that need to be done in order to make the routine a success. Another example is the YMCA routine that I mentioned earlier on. Matt is the one that's doing the mentalism. He's the one that's doing the believable reveals, while I'm the person that's messing around. I'm the one that's doing the comedy, but I'm also the person that's palming the cards off and the person that's doing the various different classic forces. That's me. So the point I'm trying to make here is whether it's on stage or off stage and you are sharing your workload out and assigning roles, make sure that you take into consideration the strengths of each individual performer in the show. Okay, so the next point that I want to make is don't be lazy. Now, this kind of ties into the whole developing set pieces section that I mentioned earlier on, but this is kind of more of it. What I don't like seeing when you do a two-person show, or me personally, maybe you like it, but what I don't like seeing when it's a two-person act that's being developed together, I don't like it when it's me and one person, and I don't like seeing a two-person show where it's almost like there's nothing when they're doing it together. So it's like, right, this person's going to perform a trick. Now I'm going to walk off stage and this person's going to perform a trick. Now I'm going to walk off stage and now it's this person that's going to perform a trick again. And it's almost like, what's the point in having a two-person show? There's only one person out there at any time. They didn't need to be on stage together, right? You need to develop routines where there's both of you on stage, or develop sequences that allows one person to be there. Perfect example of one of those sequences is what you saw with me and Ryland. Ryland was doing the Vanishing Cane. I wasn't on stage during the Vanishing Cane. He was doing it on his own, but there was a reason for that because we were having this competition and I didn't need to be on stage when he was doing the routine. He just needed to be on stage. So you need to figure out a way that all the way through the show, both people are involved, or if both people aren't involved, there's a reason why both people aren't involved. Because if you don't, it's kind of lazy. It's not really a two-person show. You've just got that person there to help. You know, I did a show for a little while with Steve Della. We only actually ended up doing one show. We had big plans for it, but you know, COVID hit. I got busy. He got busy. He moved in a different direction. I moved in a different direction, and that's all fine. But we did a show called Phantasmagoria. Great show. We planned it out, and you know, it went really well. It was the whole idea of a magician versus a mentalist, and it was like he was going to do mentalism, I was going to do magic, and the audience at the end were able to vote for what they preferred, the magic or the mentalism, by everybody had a score sheet and they gave a number. You know, they marked what they think the magic should be and what they thought the mentalism should be. And those scores were added up, and Steve had predicted the outcome right from the very, very beginning. Which was a great ending to the show and kind of had that really big wow factor at the very end. But the whole idea is, if I had to say there was one problem with the show, it's that there were a lot of moments where I was on stage on my own or Steve was on stage on his own. Now, we'd made an effort to have 2 or 3 set pieces in there when we were both on stage together, but because of the nature of the show that was mentalism versus magic, there were a lot of moments where he was doing something on his own or I was doing something on my own. And I think if we carried on doing that show, that would have been addressed and that issue would have been kind of looked at. But as it was, we only did it once. But yeah, it's another example of really thinking through the set pieces, the characters, and making sure that you make the most of having 2 people in the act. Okay, so point number 9 is don't spend every waking moment together. This is a mistake that me and Russ did when we first started touring. We'd spend every single moment together. We'd be in the van together going to the holiday park. Obviously, we're in the same caravan during the run of the holiday park, but during the day when we weren't performing, because we were not performing, we'd either be sitting together in the same room working on stuff for the website, or we'd go out somewhere and do something together or grab lunch together, and we'd just get on each other's nerves. It goes back to what I said at the very beginning. With any successful 2-person act, with any successful partnership, you're going to be spending more time with that person than anybody else in your life, including your significant other. And because of that, you want to make sure that you've got space. Because it doesn't matter how close that you get on with each other, eventually and inevitably, you're going to be in a situation where you just end up getting into an argument. So plan out not to spend every moment together. I'm sure I saw an interview with Penn and Teller where they said they spend so much time planning the show, so much time working on the show, that when they're not doing show-related activities, they don't really hang out together. And I could see that. That would make total sense to me, because, the way that the length of time that those two have had a show together, they'd probably kill each other by now if they were with each other 24/7. So make sure that you don't spend every moment together. And the final point number 10, is have fun. That's all I'm going to say about that. Have fun. You know what? It's very easy to gloss over moments, and then you kind of miss them years later. Like, I had a lot of fun working with Russell Leeds and Anna Leeds. We had an absolute blast. All the years that we worked together, doing the show, on the road, it was great fun. It was great fun. And I took it for granted when I was actually in it, because it was just happening, and it was just like, yeah, okay, now we're going here, now we're going here, now we're going here. All these years later, I kind of miss that. I miss going on the road. Obviously, I've got other commitments. I've got other priorities. I have an office now. I have other stuff that I need to do. I've got kids. When I first started touring, I didn't have kids, and now I have kids, and I'm doing other stuff, which is fine, and I'm really enjoying doing all of that. But don't take it for granted, because one day, any successful show that you put together, you're going to be on the road all the time. You're going to be going out and performing here. You're going to be performing there. You're going to be performing there. It's so easy to take it for granted. Enjoy every moment of it. This is honestly probably the biggest advice I could give you. Enjoy every single moment of the journey, because at some point you will look back and you will go, oh, I wish I could do that one more time. Wouldn't it be great if I could do that one more time? And it's not going to happen. It's not going to be possible. So enjoy every moment that you have when you're doing this two-person show, because inevitably, just like all good things, it will come to an end. And you want to make sure that you've enjoyed it and you've lived it. So there you go, guys. That's another video in the bag. A little bit of a different one this time. But I have had so many people contact me about putting together a two-person show, putting together a two-person act, that I really wanted to kind of address it and talk about all the different ways that you can actually do that. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Are you a part of a two-person act? Are you a part of a double act? Are you wanting to put a double act together? Do you agree with my points? Do you disagree with my points? What do you think of me when I was in Slightly Unusual with Russ? Anything else that you want to talk about, let's leave it in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching this video. And again, please don't forget to join the Netrix, www.thenetrix.com. It's my online streaming platform, and you get access to it immediately upon joining. I'll see you again soon. Thank you so much for watching. My name's Craig from Magic